What if I told you that what you're most ashamed of, that flaw you hide from everyone, could be exactly the instrument God chose to awaken you? Sounds crazy, right? But there's a hidden pattern in the journey of the chosen ones that nobody dares to reveal. Carl Jung discovered something disturbing. Inside you exists a shadow, that rejected part, denied, pushed into the basement of your consciousness. And it's precisely this shadow that holds the key to your spiritual awakening. While you struggle to be perfect, to hide your flaws and feel worthy, the divine works in the depths of what you reject. That vice consuming you isn't your enemy, it's your most brutal teacher. Jung showed that the human psyche works through paradoxes. The more you flee from your darkness, the more power it gains over you. But when you finally face this dark side, when you accept integrating what you've always denied, something extraordinary happens. Complete transformation. The truth that will blow your mind is this: God purposefully uses a specific vice to break the ego of the chosen ones, forcing them to dive into their own shadow, not to destroy you, but to make you whole. You wake up one morning and realize you've done it again. That thing you promised yourself you'd never do, that weakness you swore you had under control, and the weight of disappointment crashes down on your chest like a ton of bricks. You look in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back at you. How did I get here? When did I become this? This is the moment most people misunderstand completely. They think this fall is evidence of their failure, proof that they're not good enough, not strong enough, not chosen at all. They believe God is disappointed in them, that they've somehow fallen off the path and now they're lost forever. But what if I told you this fall was planned? What if this exact moment of hitting rock bottom was designed specifically for you? See, the universe has a strange way of teaching lessons. It doesn't send you gentle reminders through pretty sunsets and inspirational quotes. No, real transformation requires real pressure. It requires you to be broken down to your foundation so you can be rebuilt correctly. Your vice, whatever it is, becomes the tool that strips away all the fake layers you've built around yourself. Think about it. Before this struggle, you probably thought you had everything figured out. You had your routines, your beliefs, your self-image all neatly packaged. You saw yourself as a good person, maybe even a spiritual person. You judged others who struggled with their demons while secretly believing you were above such weaknesses. Your ego was comfortable, safe, in control. But that comfort was actually your prison. It kept you from growing, from seeing deeper truths, from accessing the real power that comes from true humility. So the divine introduces this vice into your life, not as punishment, but as medicine. Bitter medicine, yes, but medicine nonetheless. The fall strips away your arrogance. It destroys your false sense of control. It shatters the image you've carefully crafted for the world and forces you to see yourself as you truly are, flawed, struggling, human. And in that moment of raw honesty, when you can no longer hide behind your masks, something sacred begins to happen. You start to develop real compassion, not the shallow kind where you feel sorry for people from a distance, but the deep kind that comes from knowing you're just as broken as everyone else. You stop judging because you understand that everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about. The fall makes you soft in places where you used to be hard, open in places where you used to be closed. This is why God chooses a vice specifically for you. It's not random. It's the exact weakness that will teach you the exact lessons you need to learn. For some, it might be pride disguised as confidence. For others, it's seeking approval through people-pleasing. It could be escaping through substances, or losing yourself in work, or hiding behind anger. Whatever form it takes, it's perfectly designed to expose what needs to be healed within you. The chosen ones aren't people who never fall. They're people who fall and choose to learn from it instead of running away. They're the ones who stay down long enough to look around and see what this darkness has to teach them. While others scramble to get back up and pretend nothing happened, the chosen ones sit in the dirt and ask why. And here's the secret that changes everything. The fall isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning. This moment of failure that feels like death is actually birth. You're being born into a new understanding, a new level of consciousness, a new version of yourself that's stronger precisely because it knows its weakness. Your vice forced you to surrender. It made you admit you can't do this alone. It brought you to your knees, and that position on your knees, broken and honest, is exactly where transformation begins. Because only when you stop pretending to have all the answers can you finally start asking the right questions. This unexpected fall becomes your greatest teacher. It shows you that strength isn't about never falling down. Real strength is about what you do after you hit the ground. Do you stay there defeated? Do you get up and pretend it never happened? Or do you use this moment to dig deeper, to understand more, to become someone entirely new? The universe doesn't make mistakes. Your struggle isn't evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation that you're exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn. And this realization, this shift in perspective, this is what separates those who remain stuck from those who truly awaken. Now that you've fallen and started to understand why, you might expect the struggle to disappear. You've learned the lesson, right? You've gained new insight, new awareness. Surely now God will remove this burden from your life and let you move forward in peace. But that's not what happens. Instead, the vice remains. It stays with you like a thorn embedded deep in your flesh, a constant reminder of your vulnerability. This is where most people get angry. They feel betrayed. They cry out asking why they still have to deal with this after everything they've been through. They've prayed, they've tried to change, they've done the inner work. So why does this weakness persist? Why does temptation still knock on their door? Why do they still feel the pull toward the very thing that brought them down? The answer is both simple and profound. The thorn isn't there to torture you. It's there to keep you awake. Without it, you'd fall back asleep into the comfortable illusion of control. You'd forget the lessons you learned during your fall. You'd rebuild those same ego walls that needed to be torn down in the first place. The thorn is God's way of keeping you humble, keeping you honest, keeping you connected to your own humanity. Think about what happens when life gets too easy. When everything flows smoothly and you're not facing any challenges, you become complacent. You stop paying attention. You drift through your days on autopilot, disconnected from your deeper purpose. You forget to be grateful. You forget to stay present. You forget that every moment is a gift that can be taken away. But with this persistent struggle, you can't afford to be complacent. Every single day you have to make a choice. Every morning you wake up and face this thorn, and you decide who you're going to be that day. Are you going to give in to the easy path, or are you going to choose the harder road of growth? This daily decision-making keeps your spirit sharp and your awareness heightened. The thorn also keeps you dependent on something greater than yourself. When you're constantly aware of your weakness, you can't fall into the trap of thinking you're doing this alone. You're forced to reach out, to ask for help, to lean on divine guidance. This creates a relationship with the sacred that goes deeper than Sunday prayers or quick thank yous when things go well. It becomes an ongoing conversation, a constant connection. There's something else the thorn does that's equally important. It keeps you authentic. You can't fake your way through life when you're dealing with a persistent struggle. You can't pretend to be perfect or put on airs of superiority. Anyone who looks closely can see you're fighting your own battles, and that makes you real. That makes you relatable. That makes you someone others can actually connect with instead of putting on a pedestal. People are drawn to authenticity like moths to light. They can smell fake from a mile away and they run from it. But when they meet someone who's honest about their struggles, who doesn't pretend to have it all together, who admits they're still figuring things out, something magical happens. Walls come down, real conversations begin, true healing becomes possible. Your persistent vice also serves as a filter in your life. It helps you identify who truly sees you and who only sees the image they want to see. Real friends, real community, real love, these things only develop when people know your struggles and choose to stand beside you anyway. The thorn weeds out the shallow relationships and makes room for the deep ones. Beyond all this, there's a mystery in the ongoing struggle that connects you to something ancient and sacred. Throughout history, spiritual masters have spoken about the value of the wound that never fully heals. They understood that this persistent pain keeps you tender, keeps you open, keeps you seeking. The moment you think you've arrived, the moment you believe you've conquered everything, you stop growing. The thorn prevents this spiritual death. Every time you face this struggle and choose to stay conscious through it, you're building something inside yourself. Not perfection, but resilience. Not control, but wisdom. Not strength that dominates, but strength that endures. This kind of inner development can't be rushed or faked. It only comes through repeated engagement with something that challenges you at your core. The thorn becomes a strange kind of companion on your journey. At first, you hate it and want it gone. Then you tolerate it while wishing things were different. Eventually, you might even develop a strange gratitude for it, understanding that this persistent struggle has shaped you into someone you wouldn't be without it. This shift from resentment to acceptance to gratitude marks a crucial stage in your awakening. What you're learning through this constant challenge is patience with yourself. You're learning that transformation isn't a straight line from broken to fixed. It's a spiral where you revisit the same issues at deeper and deeper levels. Each time you circle back to face this familiar struggle, you're not back at square one. You're approaching it from a higher vantage point with more wisdom, more tools, more understanding. The divine could remove your struggle in an instant if the goal was simply to make you comfortable. But comfort isn't the goal. Awakening is the goal. And awakening requires you to stay alert, stay humble, stay connected to both your darkness and your light. The thorn in your flesh accomplishes all of this while teaching you lessons no book or teacher could ever convey. After living with this persistent struggle, something unexpected starts to happen inside you. That burning shame that once consumed you, that heavy feeling in your chest every time you faced your weakness, begins to shift. It doesn't disappear completely, but it transforms into something else entirely, something useful, something that might even be called wisdom. At first, this seems impossible. How could shame, that crushing emotion that makes you want to hide under the covers and never face the world again, become anything positive? Shame feels like poison in your veins, telling you that you're worthless, that you're damaged beyond repair, that you should be embarrassed to even exist. It's the voice that whispers you're not enough and never will be. But here's what happens when you stop running from it. When you finally turn around and look shame directly in the eyes, when you stop trying to push it away or numb it or pretend it's not there, you discover something shocking. That shame has been trying to tell you something important all along. It's been pointing toward the parts of yourself that need attention, the wounds that need healing, the lies you've been believing about who you are. Shame acts like a compass, pointing toward your deepest insecurities. It shows you where you feel most vulnerable, most exposed, most afraid of being seen. And while that sounds terrible, it's actually incredibly valuable information. Because these vulnerable places are exactly where your greatest growth potential lives. They're the cracks where light can finally get in. When you were younger, you learned to build walls around these shameful parts of yourself. You hid them away, buried them deep, and tried to forget they existed. You created a version of yourself that you thought the world could accept, and you worked hard to maintain that image. But maintaining that false image takes enormous energy. It's exhausting to constantly monitor yourself, to make sure nobody sees the real you, to keep all those secrets locked away. Your vice broke through those walls. It exposed what you were hiding, and at first that felt like the worst thing that could happen. But now, living with this exposure for a while, you're starting to realize something profound. Those walls weren't protecting you. They were imprisoning you. The shame you felt when they came down wasn't weakness revealing itself. It was honesty finally breaking through. This is where wisdom begins to emerge. You start to understand that everyone carries shame. Every single person walking this earth has parts of themselves they're afraid to show, mistakes they wish they could erase, weaknesses they desperately try to hide. Your vice didn't make you uniquely broken. It made you uniquely honest about your brokenness. And with this honesty comes a new kind of power. When you're no longer spending all your energy maintaining a false image, that energy becomes available for other things, real things, important things. You can finally focus on actual growth instead of just managing appearances. You can have genuine relationships instead of performing for approval. You can pursue truth instead of hiding from exposure. The wisdom that grows from integrated shame is different from the knowledge you get from books or teachers. It's lived wisdom earned through pain and honest self-reflection. It's the kind of understanding that changes how you move through the world. You become less judgmental because you know intimately what it's like to struggle. You become more compassionate because your own wounds have taught you how much courage it takes to keep going. This transformation doesn't mean shame disappears entirely. It means you develop a different relationship with it. Instead of shame being your enemy that you fight against, it becomes a teacher you learn from. When shame arises now, you can ask it questions. What are you trying to show me? What part of me needs attention? What old wound is asking to be healed? Where am I still believing lies about my worth? You also start to notice how shame operates in others. You can see when someone is hiding, when they're performing, when they're terrified of being exposed. And because you've walked this path yourself, you can offer them something precious, the safety to be real. You become the kind of person others feel comfortable being honest with because you're not pretending to be perfect yourself. There's a strange paradox here. The more you accept your shameful parts, the less power shame has over you. It's like the monster under the bed that terrorizes you in the dark but turns out to be just a pile of clothes when you turn on the light. Shame relies on darkness, on secrecy, on you believing you're uniquely terrible. But when you bring it into the light and examine it honestly, it loses its grip. This is why some of the wisest people you'll ever meet are those who've been through hell and came out the other side. They're not wise because they avoided pain or because they're naturally enlightened. They're wise because they faced their darkness, integrated their shame, and learned the lessons hidden in their struggles. Their wisdom wasn't given to them. It was earned through the hard work of honest self-examination. Your vice forced you into this process. It pulled back the curtain on parts of yourself you wanted to keep hidden. It made you confront truths you would have avoided forever if given the choice. And yes, that was painful. Yes, it was embarrassing. Yes, there were moments when you wished the earth would swallow you whole. But on the other side of that pain lies something incredibly valuable. You're developing the ability to hold complexity. You can acknowledge your failures without letting them define you. You can admit your weaknesses without believing you're worthless. You can be honest about your struggles while still recognizing your growth. This ability to hold multiple truths at once, to be both flawed and valuable, both broken and whole. This is wisdom. The chosen ones aren't chosen because they're perfect. They're chosen because they're willing to face their imperfection and transform it into understanding. They're the ones who take their shame and use it as fertilizer for growth. They're the ones who look at their darkest parts and ask what gifts might be hidden there. They're the ones who understand that wisdom doesn't come from avoiding the hard stuff, but from moving through it with open eyes and an honest heart. This shift from shame to wisdom marks a turning point in your journey. You're no longer a victim of your vice. You're no longer trapped by your weakness. You're someone who's learning to alchemize pain into power, darkness into light, shame into the kind of wisdom that can only be earned through lived experience. With this new wisdom growing inside you, you might expect life to get easier now. You've fallen, you've carried your thorn, you've transformed your shame into something valuable. Surely now the rewards come, right? Surely now God opens the floodgates and blesses you with everything you've been waiting for, but that's not how this works. Instead, you find yourself in a desert, a long, dry, seemingly endless stretch where nothing blooms and nothing changes. This desert period frustrates everyone who enters it. You look around and see others getting their breakthroughs, receiving their blessings, moving forward with their lives. Meanwhile, you're stuck in this barren landscape where every day feels the same. You're doing the work, you're applying the lessons, you're trying to grow. But nothing seems to be happening. No doors open, no opportunities arrive, no dramatic transformations occur. What you don't realize yet is that this desert is the most important classroom you'll ever enter. This is where kings and queens are actually made, not in the palace surrounded by luxury, but in the wilderness surrounded by nothing. Because when you're stripped of all external comforts, all distractions, all the things you normally use to feel good about yourself, you're forced to develop something far more valuable: internal strength. The desert teaches patience in a way nothing else can. In our normal lives, we're used to instant results. We want immediate gratification, quick fixes, fast transformations. But real growth doesn't work on that timeline. Real change happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. The desert forces you to surrender your need for constant visible progress and trust the process even when you can't see results. During this time, you're being prepared for something bigger than you can currently imagine. Think about it. If God gave you everything you wanted right now, in your current state, could you handle it? Would you have the wisdom to manage it properly? Would you have the character to sustain it? Or would you squander it, let it corrupt you, or lose it as quickly as it came? The desert is building in you what you need to properly steward what's coming. If you'd like to go deeper and truly connect your shadow and your light, take a look at the Sim Method ebook. It's a short, practical guide that helps you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. You'll find the link in the first pinned comment below. This preparation isn't just about building skills or knowledge. It's about forging your character at the deepest level. When you're in the desert with nothing but yourself and God, you discover who you really are. All your masks fall away. All your pretenses dissolve. You can't perform for anyone because there's no audience. You can't fake it because there's nothing to fake. You're just you, raw and real. In this stripped-down state, you start to notice things you never saw before. You notice your patterns, your triggers, your automatic responses. You see how you try to control things that can't be controlled. You catch yourself seeking validation from sources that can never truly satisfy you. You recognize the stories you tell yourself about who you are and why things happen. And with nothing to distract you, you finally have the space to work on these patterns. The desert also teaches you the difference between wanting something and being ready for it. You might think you want success, recognition, abundance, or whatever your specific dream is. But the desert reveals whether you're chasing these things to fill a void inside you or because you're genuinely ready to use them for their intended purpose. This distinction matters enormously. Many people get what they want before they're ready, and it destroys them. The sudden success goes to their head. The money amplifies their worst tendencies. The attention feeds their ego until it becomes monstrous. You've seen it happen. People who seemed so promising get their breakthrough and then fall apart because they weren't prepared internally for what came externally. The desert prevents this tragedy in your life. During these long, quiet days, you're also learning to hear the voice of divine guidance more clearly. When life is noisy and busy, that still, small voice gets drowned out by all the other noise. But in the silence of the desert, with nothing else demanding your attention, you can finally hear what you've been missing. Instructions come, insights arrive, understanding deepens, but only because you're finally quiet enough to listen. Another gift the desert gives you is the ability to distinguish between what you truly need and what you merely want. Surrounded by nothing, you discover that you can survive with far less than you thought. You learn which desires are authentic and which are just noise from a culture that profits from your discontent. You figure out what actually matters versus what you've been told should matter. This isn't a comfortable process. There are days when the desert feels cruel, when you wonder if you've been forgotten, when you question whether any of this is worth it. You watch others zoom past you on their journeys, and you wonder what you're doing wrong. Why are you stuck here while they move forward? Why does your preparation take so long while theirs seems so quick, but you can't see what's happening inside them? You can't see whether their foundation is solid or shaky. You can't know whether they're being prepared for something sustainable or being set up for a spectacular collapse. Your journey is yours. Your timeline is yours. Your desert is specifically designed for what you specifically need to learn. The desert also connects you to something ancient. Throughout history, every prophet, every leader, every person who changed the world in meaningful ways spent time in their own wilderness. They had to face themselves without distraction. They had to develop faith when circumstances gave them no reason to believe. They had to keep walking even when the horizon showed no end to their journey. You're not being punished by this desert season. You're being prepared. Every day you choose to keep going, despite seeing no visible progress. You're building spiritual muscle. Every time you resist the temptation to give up or take shortcuts, you're deepening your integrity. Every moment you sit with discomfort instead of running from it, you're expanding your capacity. What's being prepared in you during this time isn't just ability, it's authority. Real authority doesn't come from titles or positions. It comes from having walked through fire and emerged refined. It comes from having faced the desert and learned its lessons. It comes from developing such deep roots that no storm can topple you. This kind of authority can't be faked or borrowed. It can only be earned through exactly this kind of patient, faithful endurance in difficult circumstances. So ask yourself this: what if the very thing you've been fighting against your entire life is actually the only thing keeping you awake? What if every time you've begged God to remove your struggle, you were really asking to go back to sleep, to return to that comfortable numbness where you never had to face yourself? The truth is, most people will die without ever waking up. They'll spend their whole lives running from their vice, hiding from their shadow, pretending they're whole when they're really just fragments held together by fear. But you're different. You're reading this because somewhere deep inside, you know your pain has purpose. You know your struggle is sacred. You know that what breaks you is also what's making you. The question isn't whether you're chosen. The question is, will you finally stop resisting the very thing that's trying to save you?